It has now become apparent that there really is a concerted effort by the Democratic Party, the establishment Republicans, or RINOs, if you will, and the misinformation fake news media to make it appear that the Republicans had an awful night on Tuesday in the midterm election results and that the Democrats won the day. And if you stick with me through this video, I'm going to explain to you why they're doing it. So stick around. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We've heard pundits and so-called news anchors on CNN and MSNBC cheerfully and gaily saying that the Republican losses on Tuesday were directly because of Donald Trump. They're trying to tell us that we should steer away from Trump because he's just nothing but trouble for the Republicans. Well, what I say is whenever you have communists, Marxists, Democrats, but I repeat myself, giving advice to help Republicans, that's when your ears should burn and your eyes should bleed because they're lying to you. All right, they're lying. They're not going to give advice to try to help Republicans. Who are they kidding? They're pointing out that Trump lost the midterms in 2018. You hear that all throughout leftist land of silliness. Well, the history of the United States government is that the party in power in the White House always loses seats in the first midterm. But don't forget, folks, President Trump was the fifth president in U.S. history to see his party gain seats in that midterm election. So even though the GOP lost the majority in 2018, they gained seats. And when you look at the analysis of Tuesday's election, it is undeniable to say that the GOP didn't rack up huge wins on Tuesday. They did. I've already done 2 videos on it. First of all, let's talk about Arizona. Has it hit anyone yet that Katie Hobbs is actually counting her opponent's votes? Does that seem right to you? Well, she's the Secretary of State, but does it seem right? Do you think that maybe that's why they created this internationally and intentionally embarrassing process for counting votes in Arizona? Because Hobbs knows that she's losing and she's trying to do something about it? Yeah, she's ahead, but there's 620,000 ballots left to be counted, and they're mostly Republicans because they're coming from red districts and people who voted on Election Day, which is usually Republicans. She's trying to stave that off. How can the establishment RINOs and all the misinformation fake news media people know that the current Secretary of State, who is in charge of counting the votes of a gubernatorial election that she is in, and not have a problem? How can they say that that's not a problem for them? Because the Democrats and the media and the RINOs, they want to get rid of Trump. That's how. The establishment in both parties, right, they want you to feel discouraged, dejected, and feeling like you lost because Orange Man bad. Okay, so it looks like the GOP is going to take the House. That's just a fact now. All right, we did 2 videos on this, like I keep saying, and that it hasn't changed since. I'm starting to wonder if the polls were skewed intentionally in favor of a red wave, just so that when there wasn't a red wave, the left could dump on Trump. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, folks, but we live in crazy times with these leftist people. All right, the Republicans got 5 flips, 5 in the House in this election. The Republicans, as of right now, have 211 seats out of the 218 that are needed to take up the majority. So they only need 7 more seats, and they're going to get them. It's inevitable. The Democrats, they're way behind. They have, I think, right now 192. And the reason we don't know who's in control of the House officially yet is because the Democrats and their shenanigans with how long it takes to count the votes. Nations like France, Rwanda, and Brazil, they all count their votes on Election Day. It's pretty embarrassing when the United States could have someone from Rwanda say, hey, don't call us a third world nation. At least we count our votes on Election Day. How embarrassing. The Democrats just can't get their act together. It's intentional, folks. It's all intentional. So the question now isn't, will the Republicans take over the House? The question is by how much of a majority. And so I want to get something out before anything else, before going on. With everyone, including the pundits on the left and on the right, agreeing that the Republicans are taking the House. And I don't care if it's just by 1 vote. The Republicans taking the House, folks, means that the hemorrhaging done to the life of this country by Joe Biden and the Democrats has officially come to an end. Joe Biden is now a lame duck president. Let that sink in for a moment, folks. It's a very soothing feeling because these reprobates in the Democratic Party have literally attacked our country in ways that our greatest enemies are enviable. So, we have won the legislative war against the Marxists and the woke. Folks, let that sink in. A win is a win. One of the nicer ironies now is that Nancy Pelosi will be the first female speaker in U.S. history to have lost the House twice. That will be her legacy. Good for her. The Democrats lost 15 seats in 2020. And now we're about to find out how many they lost as soon as the Democrats get their act together this time around. So whatever happens in the Senate, and we could lose the Senate, folks, but legislatively, no matter, as of this moment, legislatively, Biden will never get anything past the House again. Let that sink in. The Biden era legislatively is over. No fake news pundit can convince us that that's not so. They will try, but now you realize Biden legislatively is done, and you can thank Donald Trump for that. This means that Joe Biden, as lawless as he is, will resort to doing everything through executive orders, and the courts have been shutting him down left and right because executive orders that do not have a power behind them are unconstitutional. And that's another thing. The courts are shutting down Biden's lawlessness left and right, and you see it in the news. It's directly because Donald Trump transformed the courts with all those appointments he made when he was president. Donald Trump put more people on the courts, the federal courts, than his most recent predecessors did combined. And that meant something to the country. The court appointments is the only reason I would give any praise to Mitch McConnell. Yes, he's a rhino. Yes, he hates Trump, but he got the appointments through, including the Supreme Court appointments, the three of them. For that, we do owe him our thanks, patriots. Not for anything else, though. This means that things like digital currency that would have destroyed your privacy forever, they're not going through. They passed a bill for that, folks. Don't know if you know it because they were holding it off until after the midterms. And unless they do a marathon to try to get things through before January, all the things that are horrifyingly bad for the country that the Democrats passed but were holding off, they will not go through now. Can you imagine how crazy the liberals are going to be when it finally sinks in that Marjorie Taylor Greene will have subpoena power? That Matt Gaetz will be able to subpoena someone and make them answer the question? I don't know about you, but I can't wait to see that. Jim Jordan just said the other day, I think he was on Bongino. He said the other day that one of their primary focuses will be in reining in the DOJ because Merrick Garland is completely out of control. Christopher Wray is completely out of control. They're also going after Hunter Biden and the Biden crime family for all the crimes that they committed in doing lucrative deals with our enemies. And if we get just one more seat in the Senate, folks, once the Democrats get through their shenanigans, we'll find out. But we will then get subpoena power throughout the entire Congress. And that would be a beautiful thing for America. I will put the first two videos in this series at the end of this video. But you have to understand that it's not just the House and Senate we're talking about. But I went over in those other videos all the victories that the Republicans had throughout the country in this election cycle. As a reminder, Republicans now have trifectas in 23 states. So in almost half the country, folks, the Republicans control the governor's house and both houses of their legislature. Republicans gained or strengthened more supermajorities in this election. Supermajorities mean they're veto-proof. It means that the Republicans in those legislatures, in those states, would control a Democrat governor if he vetoes legislation. When you think about it, it was a red wave. We're all thinking it wasn't a red wave because we didn't slam dunk them in the House with like 35-seat gain or something like that. But folks, the gains that we did make are historic in many aspects. And remember, in 2024, the Democrats in the Senate, just like the Republicans recently, they will have to defend 17 seats. It's not going to be easy for them. Okay. Dr. Gina Loudon from the National Pulse did a piece called "The Uniparty Needs You to Believe There Was No Trump-Led Red Wave. It's a lie, and here's why and how they're doing it." She starts off the piece saying, the cable news experts keep repeating their new mantra of division, claiming Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is now set up to take out President Trump for 2024. Consider where this information is coming from and what their motivations might be before you buy into it in the slightest. She's talking about how the left, which is all the above, the Democrats, the fake news media, and the establishment RINOs, okay, that they're all trying to say that Ron DeSantis is set to take out Trump. They're so worried about Donald Trump, and they should be. I mean, when you think about it, for 4 solid years, CNN and MSNBC were 24/7 Trump negativity. Think about that. Many of them lost their careers because of it, but they suffered from Trump derangement syndrome. So let's just go on. If Governor DeSantis does, in fact, wants to be president someday, he should be willing to express his gratitude to President Trump for getting him over the line in 2018. Instead, many DeSantis backers are echoing the sentiments of CNN this week. It's an unnecessary distraction. The Make America Great Again movement needs a long line of successors to Trump. DeSantis could absolutely be one. I would vote for him if he can just be patient. But to try and crown him king of the GOP one day after several of his endorsed candidates lost, and where Trump won 219 out of 235 endorsements, doesn't really work for America First favor. In potential 2024 presidential polling, DeSantis polls at just 10% compared to Trump's 70+%. In brief, that dude was born on third base and he thinks he hit himself a triple. Nothing that happened this week makes DeSantis, who rightfully enjoyed a large victory in his home state, in large part due to the massive inward migration of MAGA Republicans, and in a slightly lesser part due to his laughably hopeless opponent, Charlie Crist, the king of the America First movement. Now, Charlie Crist, he is now lost as a Republican, as a Democrat, and as an independent. He's got that legacy, okay? As we begin to get some perspective after the risable red trickle falsehoods peddled overnight, Tuesday, people have begun to realize this midterm election went about as well as any of us had believed. Not only did President Trump win 219 of the 235 endorsed races, that's a 93% success rate, folks, but the Democrats just guaranteed themselves Joe Biden as their nominee for 2024. Think about that. In their zeal to create a no red wave narrative, they gave Beijing Joe credit for the disjointed, apoplectic panic messaging of abortion and the death of democracy. It's true. That's what they kept saying. We kept hearing abortion. It's an assault on democracy. That's all we kept hearing. Okay, so MAGA Republicans should also remember that they also do not simply fight the corporate media, the left and the far left, all at the same time. They also fight the same Republican moderates, the RINOs, if you will, who are now whipping up division inside the party. Think about it. This is why Trump went around to replace RINOs with America First Republicans. Okay, it's why we got rid of Liz Cheney. All right, it's why we're grateful to Adam Kinzinger for leaving on his own, because he realized he wasn't going to win again. Republican moderates, they're the bane of the Republican Party. Think about it. In the week Republicans retake the House and probably the Senate, win a host of victories around the country, with more to come, the corporate Republican class wants to pick a fight with the man and the movement that got us here. They just can't give Trump any credit. It's unbelievable. So perception is reality, she writes. For example, the establishment GOP in Pennsylvania was dead set against Colonel Doug Mastriano, and they worked hand in hand with the Democrats to defeat him. They did. When your gubernatorial candidate is being attacked from all sides, including your own, your Senate candidate will also be dragged down along with congressional candidates on the ballot. That's the down ballot. So these idiots on the left, they hurt our down ballot in PA. If the GOP had actually rallied around the top of the ticket, Mastriano and Oz, they could have won together and delivered a down ticket boost. But not only did the GOP establishment in that state lose the governor and the U.S. Senate race, they lost congressional races that should have been pickups. The blame lies with them, and they know it. Hence their projection, as always, onto Trump. Now, that's the point that I really wanted to make in this video, this third video about the midterms, is that don't get discouraged by the left, the three dumb groups, the misinformation, fake news media, the Democrats, and the RINO establishment Republicans. Don't get discouraged by what they're saying. Okay? You shouldn't watch them or listen to them anyway, but don't get down over it. We had a great election. Okay, despite what they're saying. The Republicans are now poised to make serious, great changes for America and to stop the attacks from the Biden White House. All right? So chin up, smile. You guys won. Enjoy it. God bless America. We'll see you in the next one.